Welcome everyone to a new episode of the Football Baron podcast, Ep.9. We're going to be going over some of the Premier League match days that occurred, as well as a new segment that we're going to be introducing to the podcast, Wonderkid of the Week. For this Wonderkid of the Week, to start it all off, will be Mason Greenwood, who put in a stellar and incredible performance against Bournemouth on behalf of Manchester United. Let's get right into the podcast. All right, let's get right into it. Leicester City versus Crystal Palace. Now, we've seen Leicester City after the restart, after the coronavirus pandemic. Of course, we know that football was on a hold. But when the Premier League came back, we saw that one of the sides that were in absolute dominating, like in the Premier League, for much of the early part of the season, they seemed to slowly falter away and their form just dipped. And that was Leicester City. Specifically, their key striker, Jamie Vardy. Now, Jamie Vardy was on fire. Just like Leicester City, he's the biggest proponent to their success, let's be honest here. Jamie Vardy is just the complete package for Leicester City. Now, if you look at his goals, which it's at 21 now, because he scored 2 goals against Crystal Palace. Now, that was, of course, it was incredible, but it ended the drought that he was having and it helped him get across the 100-goal mark for the Premier League. Now, of course, Leicester City is, I think this is important for them, of course, and also by them, in their form going down, you could really see that other teams who were picking up the pace, specifically Chelsea and Manchester United, Wolves, they were trying to get that top four, and of course, Champions League football. You could see Leicester City, who were suffering from their from their poor performances. It ultimately let those teams get closer to them. Leicester City was absolutely ahead in the table, but then through their poor form and them just getting a lot of draws and losing to teams that they shouldn't be losing with the quality of the squad that they have, just led to those points being dropped. But overall, incredible performance from Leicester City in terms of breaking out of that bad form that they were having under the past couple of games in the Premier League, even prior to the restart. Now, of course, Leicester City has a unique squad, and I don't think that they will be the top four place next season, because I don't see some of their key players staying on that team, on Leicester, specifically James Maddison, Ben Chilwell. I think those two players are really, really important to Leicester as a side. I mean, James Maddison was really one of the players that was spurring them on in a game against Everton, which they ultimately lost. Also, Benjamin Chilwell, he's getting interest from clubs like Manchester United, who are looking to spend big in the transfer window. But overall, I don't see them being a top four side. But one player that I think should be a player to look out for is Caglar Soyuncu, the Turkish defender, international for Leicester City. Now, ever since Harry Maguire left on a big money move to Manchester United, I think that Soyuncu has been putting in some solid performances. Of course, him and Johnny Evans haven't been looking as great because, of course, Leicester City had some poor performances and they're in a little bit of a slump. But now that Leicester City are slowly getting back into it, or taking the steps towards getting back into it with that 3-0 win against Crystal Palace, I think that Soyuncu is still a player that could be very important in later in the future for Leicester City, with players like Maddison and of course Chilwell potentially leaving next season. I think Soyuncu is a player that they can build off of or look to implement into a future system, because Soyuncu, let's see, 24 years old. He's 24 years old. He's a Turkish international, so he's getting more experience playing for the Turkish national team. And I think that his defending, he's quite a physical player. He's willing to get into a tackle, and I think especially if he's learning from Johnny Evans, who's played from multiple sides such as Manchester United, and learned from multiple managers, specifically Sir Alex Ferguson and other important defenders. I think that he can really mentor and tutor, which I'm sure he's already been doing, as you can see from Soyuncu's overall development. I think that Soyuncu can be a top-class defender for the future. Now, Soyuncu, he's done, just looking at the season, ever since Harry Maguire left, because Harry Maguire was really him and Harry Maguire, Johnny Evans and Harry Maguire were really limiting, of course, Soyuncu's playing time. But now that Harry Maguire is to Manchester United and this entire season, Soyuncu has been one of the two primary defenders, including Johnny Evans for Leicester City. I think that Soyuncu could be a major force in the Premier League potentially if he stays in the Premier League and stays with Leicester City, because he's only 24 and I think that he still has a lot more to show, and I think slowly as he continues to learn from Johnny Evans, he will be a true top class defender. All right, moving on to another match that occurred this match day was Manchester United versus Bournemouth. It's solid performance from Manchester United, specifically from their midfield and their front three. Absolutely incredible. 5-2 scoreline. Key players like Bruno Fernandes, Pogba, Martial, Marcus Rashford, and Mason Greenwood. Basically, just all those players that were just implementing into such an impressive scoreline, 5-2. Mason Greenwood scoring 2 goals, Bruno Fernandes scoring from a free kick, Anthony Martial scoring a goal, and just an incredible performance, just incredible from Manchester United. We did see them dip in performances when they substitute some of those players off and brought in some other players such as Gallo and Fred. Of course, that's expected because there's still there's a talent gap between those players, but of course they need to rest some of those players. They've been playing a lot of matches, and it's getting later into the season. So, of course, impressive from Manchester United, but by highlighting Greenwood, Rashford, and Anthony Martial, I think that we're missing an important player from Manchester United's dominant win against Bournemouth, specifically Nemanja Matic. Now, I think that Matic was... I did not think he was a good fit in the midfield, and you could see that with McTominay playing over Matic. And Matic is... He's an interesting case because early in the season, you could see him not playing full 90 minutes because I really don't think that he has the stamina or like the physical capability or fitness to play full 90 minutes at a peak level. But what you're really seeing is he's a strong anchor for Manchester United. He's experienced. I believe he's in 31 or 30. Has a lot of experience on multiple sides. And overall, he allows Manchester United to have a more fluid and strong play with the arrivals of course, Bruno Fernandes and Paul Pogba returning to fitness. I think he enables those players. And, of course, we focus on Bruno Fernandes and Paul Pogba for what they're contributing to Manchester United because they're big names. But Matic specifically, and a couple pundits are highlighting it as well, but I still think that he doesn't have enough credit for that. Matic is a strong anchor for Manchester United. Just his defensive play and how he allows Pogba and Fernandes to move up and make more advanced plays, more attacking plays, while he can do more of a defensive role. And I think that's important for Manchester United overall as a system because I think Solskjaer is finding something, and I think you can see him continually trying to push it by playing the same starting 11. I think he's found something, and I think Matic is a key piece in that system. Now, Matic was saying that he finally got Solskjaer to trust. He has Solskjaer's trust, and I think that's important because that trust is important because he has a key role, I think, that isn't highlighted enough in what he does in enabling those front three and the midfield, Pogba and Fernandes, into helping the front three. And you can see that from the performance, a 5-2 dominant win for Manchester United. And, of course, I got proven wrong in Arsenal versus Wolves. Now, I thought Wolves would secure a win, but it turns out Arsenal won 2-0. Saka with a goal, and Lacazette getting subbed in with only a few minutes left in the game, and he scores a goal. I'm sure that's a morale boost to everyone, seeing such a prolific striker, a good striker, amazing striker, going back and scoring a goal, which he hasn't in a long time. But still incredible from Arsenal. Good performance. They deserve the win. They put in a strong overall performance. and I think it's still a good step. I was talking last week or a couple days ago from the last podcast that Arsenal still has those core problems that they need to solve, but I think those core problems are still there. But I think they're looking to be solved. Now, I don't want to jinx it, but they're looking to be solved with new contracts being given to key young talents such as Saka and Martinelli. And if they can sign players such as Aubameyang, who was reported, I believe he wants $250,000 a week, not dollars, excuse me, pounds or euros or whatever the currency is. But that is a big wage bill, or that will pile on to Arsenal. And with Mesut Ozil, I believe earning like 300,000 to 350,000 a week, I think that's going to be tough for them to give away more money or set aside more money for the wages for these key players. But if they can potentially sign them, and I think Aubameyang is looking to get a good contract, which he should, because he's really helping Arsenal do better than they than they would have without him. But I think if they can do it, they should sign him or try to sign it if they're financially capable. But I really don't see. I don't know exactly what the financial situation is of the club. I know it's bad, but exactly if they can do the deal, then it will totally depend, and we will see in the future if Aubameyang will get a new contract and an extension to stay at Arsenal. Another important match was Chelsea versus Watford. Watford looking to get any points, a draw or a win to get further away from that relegation zone. Chelsea, who were just disappointingly taken out by West Ham United in the derby. 2-1 win for West Ham United, who were looking for those 3 points or just 1 point, and they came out with 3 points to help them in their relegation battle. Now, Chelsea, I think Frank Lampard after the game he looked upset with his team. He just talked about how the mentality wasn't there. They have the talent, and they're going to have the talent next season with players such as Ziyech and Timo Werner coming in from the Bundesliga, and that talent's going to be there. And there's still talent in the squad with players like Pulisic, Mason Mount in the squad as well. But the mentality, and you could see that specifically in their defensive play. But you didn't see the problems as amplified as they were in the West Ham game. But in the Watford game, they won 3-0. Specifically, players such as Mason Mount and Pulisic putting in some incredible performances, but the real man of the match was Barkley. Barkley, amazing goal and an assist, just incredible performance from him. And Pulisic, who he secured a penalty from a rash decision by a Watford defender to take him out. There was no reason to do it, but he took out Pulisic in the penalty box, and Willian took the penalty and scored for Chelsea. And Giroud scoring a goal from a Barkley pass, which was a nice pass, and Giroud just doing what he does, scoring a goal for Chelsea. And then Barkley near the end of the game scoring another goal, putting it at 3-0. Overall, a good performance from Chelsea. You could see that they're attacking their talent in their front three, just overall attacking play, and their midfield is solid. But overall, Chelsea just needs to invest in defenders. I think that Rudiger is an experienced center back, and of course, I think there should be leeway for him, because a couple mistakes here and there doesn't mean that you're just an awful center back as a whole. But I don't see defenders such as Christensen being there in the long term. I'm not really impressed by Christensen overall. I just don't see him. He's tall. He has a lot. I think he can be a good. He's really good aerially, but I just don't see him just being a strong defender that Chelsea needs. Just somebody that they can rely on as Liverpool relies on Van Dijk. And I think that Chelsea needs to invest in defender this transfer market. They already got Werner and Ziyech, and they're looking to potentially get Havertz, but they need defense. They need a defensive player, another defensive player. Specifically, I don't know. They're Koulibaly maybe one. He's 29, I believe, or 30, and that could be a good short-term option. But they need somebody that's I don't know. They just need somebody that will be there for the long term, or somebody that they can rely on. Now, I could see some candidates such as Upamecano for Leipzig. He played with Werner in the Leipzig team, and he's pretty incredible to see. He's a strong, good defender, very intelligent defensive work from him. But I do think he could play a good part in a potential Chelsea defensive lineup. But overall, Chelsea strong performance, but they still have some of those defensive issues that are clear to see, and they really need to look to fix it. Specifically, Frank Lampard needs to look for new potential signings for a defensive back line if they want to win a title or truly contest the title next season. Aston Villa went to Anfield to face Liverpool. Of course, Liverpool being absolutely thrashed by Man City 4-0. Liverpool were supposed to have that mentality of just anger and push to just make amends for that disappointing defeat as title Premier League champions. And Aston Villa trying to stay in the Premier League for another season after being promoted from the Championship. Now, Aston Villa, they put in a solid overall team game. I think that just them defensively was really strong. You could see that just for majority of the game, they were just holding off and staving off Liverpool's constant attack. And they had a couple of chances where when they were on the counter attack, that Liverpool just wasn't fully. Liverpool's always vulnerable to to a good extent when it comes to counter attacks with Fabinho and Joe Gomez and Van Dijk, the primary people to stop it with. Of course, Andy Robertson and Alexander Arnold on further up. But Aston Villa had a couple of chances, but Alisson saved one from Jack Grealish in particular. And just overall good defensive work from Liverpool in maintaining a clean sheet. And it was a good start and good game for majority of the game for Aston Villa in just keeping Liverpool away from scoring a goal early on. And it was a scoreless first half, and Liverpool just couldn't really get in. And of course, when substitutions came in with players such as Henderson, Firmino, and Wijnaldum coming in, the usual starting 11 seemed to be was being more resembled in the pitch. And then suddenly you got that turn in performance. Sadio Mane scoring the first goal nearing the end of the second half. And then Curtis Jones scoring a goal, his first goal for Liverpool in the Premier League. Incredible moment for him. But overall, Liverpool getting those 3 points and just trying to get that confidence back after such a disappointing defeat against Man City. And Aston Villa, they should take pride in what they achieved from Liverpool and in that game specifically. Specifically how their overall performance was, I think, should be highlighted, and it was important because just defensively, I hope that the Aston Villa players don't be worried or saddened by that result, because I think that a lot of relegation teams at this moment, you could see Norwich after that Brighton defeat, they just looked dejected of their fate. And I think many of them realize that or believe that they aren't going to be staying in the Premier League and that they most certainly will be relegated. But Aston Villa, I hope they don't reach that point. You can see some players such as Tyrone Mings and Jack Grealish, they look pretty tired out. But overall, Aston Villa can avoid relegation. They have some solid building blocks that they're slowly starting to assemble in terms of just defensively. Their defensive work is solid, and overall they have they know how to defend. I think it's a little bit too late now that they're learning this, and overall just getting this defensive work down. They were solid for majority of the game. Unfortunately, they broke down to Liverpool. But still, I think if Aston Villa can hold that defensive system and overall influence while maintaining that counter-attacking threat that they were opposing to Liverpool, then they can most certainly avoid relegation and get some crucial points to stay in the Premier League. All right, now we're going to go into a new segment that we're going to be implementing to the podcast every podcast episode, Wonderkid to watch. Now, we were covering this Wonderkid earlier in the podcast in Manchester United's dominant win against Bournemouth 5-2 scoreline, and that Wonderkid scoring 2 goals, impressive goals, to just be clear. If you saw those goals or if you haven't, please check the highlight for the Manchester United versus Bournemouth game. Just incredible goals from this Wonderkid, Mason Greenwood. Now, Mason Greenwood, I think, is an interesting player. I've heard comparisons to him and Robin Van Persie in his overall movement and attacking play, but he's quite incredible. He's got some incredible technique. Specifically, he's two-footed for starters. He's quite quick and clinical in front of goal. I mean, just impressive how many goals he scored for his age. Now, of course, Greenwood is a product of the Manchester United Academy. Now, overall, the Academy has been relied on in recent days with players such as Rashford and now Greenwood being into the fold. But Greenwood specifically, I think, has quite a high ceiling for his age. He's only 18 years old. Now, just take that into account. 18 years old, and he's putting in such incredible performances. Now, let me just read some stats for you. 41 appearances. Now, don't view it as many. It's not that much of appearances. The majority of them are substitutions. And just overall, the amount of work he's been able to do with majority of these appearances being substitutions is incredible. 41 appearances, 15 goals, and 5 assists in 41 appearances. Now, in those appearances are in the Premier League, Europa League, FA Cup, and the EFL Cup. But overall, my goodness, a wonder kid to watch. Mason Greenwood can have a bright future ahead of him. He has the potential to be a world-class player, for sure. Definitely. If he can stay on a straight road, if Solskjaer can keep him level-headed and not distracted, and just continue to keep his development steady and not let him fall into the media trap and the fans trap, where if he stops scoring goals or just stops having those assists and just putting in the high bar he set himself, then fans will just turn on him, or media will turn on him, or put articles that will put him in a negative light, and that will, of course, destroy his confidence. But if he can keep that momentum and just try to keep a strong mentality all about it. He's only 18. He's still a kid, but overall, just incredible from him, what he's been doing at Manchester United. I think he has a strong future ahead of him, and he's definitely a wonder kid to watch. Now, that will be the last segment of our podcast, something to conclude on, Wonder Kid to watch. And of course, I want to thank you all for listening to this episode of the podcast, episode 9. We're already at 9 episodes. I just want to thank you for watching, and everyone who's been watching and staying in tune to our podcast. Of course, if you are listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, or any of those podcast platforms and other podcast platforms, please subscribe, follow, or like the podcast, give us 5 stars. It really helps us reach more people. And if you want to see smaller clips of the podcast, if you can't listen to the entire podcast, you don't have the time, then you can go to our YouTube channel, Football Baron, and go to our Instagram, Football Barons. Football Barons is our username, and I hope you all have a great day, and overall just have a nice weekend, and enjoy the rest of your weekend, and enjoy the weekday that is coming. Thank you for listening, and again, have a great day.